Hi guys, it's Harmony from Messengers of Mercy. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, the second coming of Jesus Christ. To know more about the second coming of Jesus Christ, you're going to want to look at the book of Revelation. And that's revelation, not revelations, because this is a revelation from Jesus Christ to his disciple John. In the book of Revelation, there are many things that have to happen in order for the second coming, or in this case, the return of Jesus Christ. When you look in Revelation 6, right in the passage about the sixth seal, it talks about as the six seals open, there was a great earthquake, the sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair, and the whole moon turned blood red. And the stars in the sky fell to earth as figs drop from a fig tree when shaken by a strong wind. The heavens receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was removed from its place. This here is could be symbolism, but it also could be very much a truth that in the last days the sky will be covered in ash. When you think about this, it talks about there being a great earthquake and then the moon turning blood red. Oftentimes, earthquakes can trigger volcanic eruptions, and when there's copious amounts of volcanic ash in the air, it can actually cause the moon to take on a reddish hue, giving it that idea of a blood moon. Then in Revelations 11, another thing comes about. It talks about the two witnesses. It goes, "And I will appoint my two witnesses, and they will prophesy for 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth." And it goes on, but it basically talks about how there are going to be these two people that are going to just proclaim the word of God. It then goes on here that they have the power to shut up the heavens so that it will not rain during the time they're prophesying, and they have power to turn the waters into blood and to strike the earth with every kind of plague as often as they want. Now when they have finished their testimony, the beast that comes up from the abyss will attack them and overpower and kill them. And it goes on, and it tells more about that in Revelation 11. But again, there's criteria for before Jesus comes back, certain things will happen. Looking at the book of Matthew 24:14 actually says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." So we've already got some things that need to happen. The gospel needs to be readily available where everyone and anyone has access to it. There's going to be two people that rise up, these two witnesses that come about. There's also going to be earthquakes or cataclysmic natural disasters. It talks more about this in other parts of Revelation as well. It talks about natural disasters in Luke 21. And also again in Luke 25, it talks about earthquakes and famine and pestilence. They talk about the sun and the moon and the stars, just basically where men's hearts are failing them of fear for what's coming. So the return of the Lord isn't going to be silent. It's not going to be something that happens without people knowing. It is going to be very, very clear. One of the biggest things, and probably one of the things that isn't really arguable, is the rebirth of Israel has to happen prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ. And in 1948, after the World War, the United Nations actually established the state of Israel in Tel Aviv. So that was May 14th of 1948. So now you see that there is a definitive time point. So the second coming comes back after the rebirth of Israel. So that definitively has happened. So it's going to be after this point. And then there's also probably the most known sign of the before the second coming is found in Revelations 13. It starts here in Revelation 13, 16. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the numbers of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the numbers of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. So when people look at the end of the world, oftentimes you see that number 666. You hear about the mark of the beast. These are the things that you hear over and over and over again. But there are absolutely conditions that must be met for the end of the world. There absolutely are conditions that must be met before the return of Jesus Christ as our victorious conqueror. And these are some of them. And it's not all of them. I really just tried to cherry pick the ones that I felt like were the most important. There are various other ones. It talks in general about globalization. The beast will want everything to be under one government, one power, one currency. You can kind of see shadowings of this with the UN. That's probably the best description of a symbolic power like that we have nowadays. Also, you're going to see an increase in technology, because it talks about at the end of the age, the end of time, that there's going to be an increase in knowledge. And we've seen that. Right now, you see knowledge at its most abundant. With the internet and tools as such, we have a greater access to knowledge than we ever have before. But what we have is a deficit of wisdom. You don't see people really implementing biblical wisdom anymore. And you see at the end of the age that this is what's going to start to happen, because immorality starts to come about, false prophets, false messiahs. And of course there is the Antichrist, who is the most false of all the messiahs. He's a prophet of men, not a prophet of God. And he will also be a sign of the second coming of the Lord. And then, of course, there's the attack on the Christian faith. And you've already started to see this if you open up your eyes. There's been a slow shift in culture, a slow shift from Hollywood, where it used to be that people, movies, things had sort of a slight Christian undercurrent. You saw a lot of nuclear families. You saw a lot of husbands and wives married with children. And you saw kind of Christian values and morals. And that is not the case anymore. There has been an increase in movies that show, blatant sin. You see things that are, very overtly sexualized, very profane. There aren't as many, the moral compass has shifted. And if you say that you're Christian, or if you stand by your beliefs as a Christian, oftentimes it can lead to you being mocked. There has been absolutely an attack. There's this modern evolution that teaches away from the biblical teachings and focuses on this false doctrine of evolution, which honestly takes more faith to believe than the wonderful story that is found in Genesis. But despite the lack of evidence, that doctrine is being taught. And if you don't agree with it, oftentimes you're seen as a zealot. People just don't agree with you. They attack you. If you decide that you don't want to do something because of your Christian faith, you are under attack. They want to say stuff that you're a hypocrite, that, what gives you the right to judge. So that is all happening now. And as I touched on before, the spread of the gospel, it talks right there in that passage that I read from Matthew. I'll read it again, Matthew 24:14. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Right there is the crux. That is what it all centers on. I mean, there's so many things other things that happen, but the gospel is going to be readily available so that no one has the chance to say, well, I never heard that. I never, I didn't have a chance to get saved because I've never heard of the gospel before. That will not be an acceptable or even something, an admissible thing as the end of the world comes about, because there will be no chance of individuals not having heard the gospel, because it will be preached everywhere. And when you start to look at things nowadays, they talk about how the Bible is 97% of the world right now has access to the Bible. It's almost the whole world. So as you start to think about that, it does give you a moment for thought. What are these signs for the end of the world? And how soon are they going to be converging on us? Thank you for listening to this message from Messengers of Mercy, and I hope you have a wonderful day.